when you don't know who you are. A strange reality in modern life is that many people live without ever truly knowing who they are. They go to work, socialize, fall in love, and laugh daily, but deep down inside is a vast emptiness. They're not sure what they truly want, what they like, what they believe in, or even who they're supposed to be in this life. These people don't usually ask themselves, "What do I like?" Instead, they wonder, "What do others like? Should I follow that?" They don't seek empathy from within. They simply mirror the world around them like a reflection in glass. They laugh when others laugh, agree with opinions because they sound right, love an artist just because everyone else does. They may appear friendly, flexible, and sociable, but beneath that, there is a persistent, silent question. Who am I really? Do I have the right to think differently? Without a solid sense of self, we easily lose ourselves in the expectations of others, become inconsistent, fragile, and live in confusion. Not knowing yourself isn't just a shortcoming. It's a quiet but dangerous threat to your mental well-being. When you live in your body, but your mind belongs to others, people who lack a sense of self are not easily recognized at first glance. They can be charming, sensitive, and great at pleasing others. But if you observe closely, you'll notice they frequently shift their opinions, sometimes contradicting themselves in just a few days. Today they say they love a certain artist, a lifestyle, or a political view, but days later, they declare the opposite. These changes don't come from inner exploration, but from scanning the environment to see what's more acceptable. They make choices not based on real feelings, but based on what seems safe. Inside them is a never-ending dialogue. When should I smile to be appropriate? Is this worth liking? If I think differently, will I be judged? They live as if their minds have been outsourced to others. Their inner voice is faint, because since childhood, they were never encouraged to explore or affirm their own opinions. Instead, they learn to listen to expectations and shape themselves to please adults, friends, lovers, anyone around them. And then they lose direction. They blend into their surroundings so much that they can't distinguish between empathy and imitation. They think they're harmonizing, but really, they're disappearing into others. Their flexibility isn't a sign of maturity, but a survival mechanism rooted in a past where they were never allowed to be themselves. When your childhood didn't allow you to be yourself, no one is born disconnected from themselves. Children come into the world with sharp instincts. They know what they like, dislike, and what sparks their curiosity. But for these instincts to grow into a strong sense of self, a child must be seen, heard, and respected by the adults around them. Sadly, many children grow up in environments where their inner world is never valued. Parents, overwhelmed by stress, anxiety, or their own issues, often don't lower themselves to ask their child, "How are you feeling? What do you want? What makes you happy?" Instead, they impose, "You need to study this to be smart. You have to play this sport to be praised. When you grow up, you must be a doctor or engineer. Stop dreaming." In such cases, the child has no choice but to adapt. For survival and the basic need for love, they learn to please. They give up their true selves just to belong. Over time, their authentic identity gets buried. Each time they try to speak up or express how they really feel, they're shut down with phrases like, "Don't say nonsense. Why are you thinking so weirdly? Just do what your parents tell you and stop arguing." From these moments, a deep belief is etched into their minds. To be loved, I must obey. That's the first price they pay to exist, giving up themselves to become who others want them to be. The adults we see today are often the children who were never allowed to be themselves. When adulthood still holds a forgotten child inside, when you grow up without ever being allowed to be yourself, the child you once were doesn't disappear. It just gets buried beneath a functional adult. On the surface, They may seem polite, kind, attentive, great at listening and pleasing others. But underneath, they live with a borrowed identity, not a real one. They've learned how to read people, figure out what others want to hear or see, and reflect that back like a perfect mirror. They're not pretending to agree. They truly dissolve into others' worlds because they don't have a firm inner world of their own to hold on to. But no one abandons their true self without consequences. Beneath the surface of their gentle exterior is a slow-burning anger, a build-up of silenced frustration and years of unspoken needs. They don't know how to ask for what they want because they never learned how. They're unfamiliar with saying no or choosing based on their own will. When pressure builds too long, they don't communicate. They explode. The resentment, the feeling of being controlled, it often pours out onto the people closest to them. Lovers, partners, best friends. Ironically, you might be the first person who truly loves them and wants to understand them. Yet they see you as the one trying to control them. Because in their eyes, you've become the new version of those who once denied their identity. That rejected self doesn't disappear. It lies dormant, waiting to erupt in the form of rage, withdrawal, or silent sorrow. Loving someone who doesn't know who they are, loving someone who lacks a strong sense of self, can be both enchanting and dangerous. In the beginning, they make you feel like the most special person in the world. They notice every little detail about you, what books you read, what food you like, what places impress you. They gaze at you with admiration and unconditional affection. Everything about you suddenly seems so lovable to them. You feel seen, understood, cherished, the kind of love we all crave. But here's the issue. They're not truly loving you. They're borrowing you to build a temporary sense of identity. And when their environment changes, a new job, a new friend group, a more inspiring world, they start to withdraw, quietly but surely. The admiration they once gave you doesn't just fade, it can turn into contempt. They might say, "You don't really understand me. You expect me to be perfect. I feel controlled." But the truth is, they gave you that power in the first place because they didn't know how to lead themselves. And when they feel lost, they lash out at you, the one person who truly cared. You're left wondering, how could someone who once admired me so deeply now be so cold and distant? The reason is, they never truly knew who they were, so they couldn't know who they were loving or what they needed. How to love someone who was never allowed to be themselves. When you realize the person you love doesn't have a clear sense of identity, you may feel confused, hurt, or frustrated. But if you're patient and empathetic, you can be the first person to help them find their true self in a gentle and lasting way. First, understand this. They're not trying to deceive or manipulate you. They behave this way because they were never allowed to just be themselves growing up. Parents, teachers, and other adults in their lives may have drowned out their feelings with demands, expectations, or neglect. So they learned, to be loved, I must please others. That's why the most valuable thing you can offer them is not advice or solutions, but patience and non-judgment. Say things like, "You don't need to be like me to be loved. I'm genuinely curious about what you think." Even if you're not sure what you like, discovering it together is a beautiful journey. Don't try to shape them into your version of stable. Don't rush them. Let them stumble, experiment, contradict themselves, like a child learning to walk again. They may sulk for no reason, pull away suddenly, or panic when real emotions arise. That's not betrayal. That's the resistance of a self that was never allowed to exist. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is simply stay. Not because you need them to become someone, but because you accept who they are, even when that identity is still forming. Thank you for watching the video. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Wishing you a peaceful day.